Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome everybody to our February partner training on boosting your sales with AireSpring's global connectivity and managed SD-WAN solution. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes. We have a lot of people who signed up for this, so I want to give everybody a chance to log on before we actually start the presentation. If you're like me and other people, you pretty much wait until the top of the hour when you get your last notification that the webinar is starting, but that's okay. Um, so today we're going to go over what AireSpring offers for global connectivity. We have a lot of options. If you were working with AireSpring years ago and kind of went away from working with us, you're in for some surprises because a lot has happened with AireSpring in just the last 2 years. Amazing progress and additional product line. And Joseph joined us about 2 years ago. Joseph is our Vice President of Global Connectivity. Dave Pierce, who is our other presenter today, is our Director of Global SD-WAN. I think, Dave, you've been here about 4 years now, I believe. So they have a really good presentation outlined for you today. If you're not exploring your options to sell to your clients who have locations outside the United States, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Since we started to offer this solution, we've had a lot of partners really grow their business dramatically as a result of just asking some simple questions to their existing clients and do some prospecting, and they've got new clients. So if you have any clients in your list that have locations outside the U.S., even if it's just Canada, Mexico, anything outside the United States, especially if you have clients that are multinational, you really need to have that conversation with them because we guarantee you other partners out there will be calling on your clients to try and sell them international connectivity. It's an international market now. You can't just do business within the U.S. Even if you're just working with a supplier, a supply chain supplier, you're going to want to explore international connectivity and global SD-WAN. We've got quite a few people logged on now. Just quick housekeeping. Everyone's lines are muted during the presentation, and we usually do not unmute them because we can't control the noise. However, we ask you that you have questions come to mind, please enter them into the question window, and we'll get to them at the end. And we also have a survey that goes out at the end, and everyone who fills out that survey gets a chance at a $100 Amazon gift card. We hold a drawing for an Amazon gift card every month in conjunction with these webinars, and we do award that Amazon gift card every month. So please make sure you fill out that survey. It'll take you all of probably 30 seconds to do so. See how we're doing. Okay, people are still logging in, but in the interest of time, everyone's very busy. It's the end of the month. Joseph, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Ellen. And it's great to speak to you guys. As Ellen mentioned, it's been 2 years now. We're going into our third year with a real focus on international, and the partner engagement that we've seen for our international solutions has been unbelievable. And thank you for everybody that's trusted AireSpring with that, and we're continuing to grow it, and we've seen monumental results. So this is part of what we're talking about today is don't be afraid of looking at international. Let's talk about international, get us involved, me and myself, Dave Pierce, who will talk to you, one of my colleagues for the latter part of this presentation. It's all about how do we help you boost your sales? How do we engage in areas that maybe you haven't been confident in the previous world or previous lives, and bring us to the table as subject matter experts. We're here to support you. We know we can't sell without you. So bring us in often, bring us in early. We'll tell you what's real, what's not, and the reality of what life is like in the international environment. So with that being said, moving on to the first slide. AireSpring has kind of, we've been around for 23 years, right? So we have this prestige history of operating in focused on channel connectivity solutions. So we've kind of broken this down into 5 diverse verticals that we're supporting today for enterprise customers that ultimately our partners bring it to us today, right? So the first has always been managed connectivity. How do we manage not just only in the US, which we've been doing forever with our relationships with AT&T and all of the big names in the US, but now we're expanding that into the international world, moving from MPLS mesh networks into SD-WAN, bringing in multi-cloud connect services, network monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the stuff we'll get onto today will be the managed SD-WAN solutions that we have with VMware and Fortinet internationally, and adding in our global private network solution, which is really exciting. Building out a global network of 23 markets around the world. AireSpring has really invested in building a true global solution that other carriers can't compete with. So, I think, especially when you're channel focused, I don't think there's another carrier out there that's put more investment into this international environment than AireSpring. Our cloud and voice communication channel, probably won't get into this too much. At Global, which we'll mention, the part of the global connectivity solutions with the providers we've worked with around the world, and then mobility, which is our wireless network access network product, MVNO, MVNE services, IoT, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the kind of the 5 areas that we've internally put a focus on to drive our enterprise business moving forward through the channel, right? So these are the areas that we see as the most dominant, the most needed, and the most requested. So today, our international product focus will be focused around these 3 verticals. So managed connectivity, managed SD-WAN and security, and then global connectivity, how we work with partners, which also includes a premium internet access solution in China, which ultimately helps customers that have locations within China navigate the issues and the challenges that there are with working with a Chinese internet service provider. So you'll see our global private network, how we built this to help navigate that firewall issue to access ERP platforms within the US and get that user experience that, not only in the US, but to get that user experience that you would experience in the rest of the world within China itself. So yeah, so as you can see, there's a ton of involvement with us, AireSpring, being growing into this international environment, right? So joining 2 years ago in personal experience, there was everybody says they can do everything everywhere, and this is what I would recommend to every partner out there, but really dig in to understand what their real ability is. Everybody says they can do everything anywhere, but reality, we've seen it in many other situations where it could be a price related thing. The reality is we have the experience. We built a business over 23 years, and in the last kind of 3, 4, 5 years, there has been a significant amount of investment into bringing on senior members of our executive team that have dealt with this on a daily basis throughout their career, right? So it's really refreshing to see, and the way that AireSpring operates, I'll be very transparent. We do things the right way, right? We're here to support our customers. Be very transparent about what's achievable. Pricing wise, we'll be very transparent, and we've seen that transparency result in a significant amount of growth in the international environment over the last 2 and 3 years. So yeah, it's very cool, and thank you guys for doing that. So with that being said, our global internet connectivity model, it's continuing to grow, right? So originally when I first started, I looked at where we were seeing the most amount of requests internationally, and then going and working with partners and onboarding those carriers, those last mile carriers around the world, to be able to support the last mile connectivity for our SD-WAN solutions. So in the last 6 months, I've been in Asia, South Africa, Europe, Middle East. I was there last month, working with these providers to explain our business model and to support us in the best way possible. So as I say, we have 100% of the world's global coverage. These little dots on the map represent the monitoring, the network assets that we have, where we can monitor the access providers and the last mile NIDs that we have in these countries and around the world. We have about 44,000 last mile end locations being monitored at any one point. Obviously that changes on a monthly basis, but we're seeing that increase over month on month, for the last, again, 23 years, and it's just cool to see this happening internationally now. So what makes us different? We'll be very transparent. We'll tell you who our last mile providers are. We'll be transparent about the lead times, the challenges that we have in some of these locations around the world. Everyone can say that it's very easy to deliver in some of these locations. The reality is that if you try and deliver in France in August, for example, that's not going to happen. We'll work with you. We'll work with the customer. But the reality is that Elcon will be on holiday in France because they get so much vacation time. That nobody's really in France and working in that particular time of the month. Same in the Middle East with Ramadan. We have this expertise, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. We'll remotely monitor services on SD-WAN solutions, even if the customer wants to bring their own bandwidth. So this is definitely a differentiator in the marketplace. Obviously, there is a cost to it, but we can actually take that LOA, LOI, work with that last mile provider to get that service turned up, even if they haven't bought it through AireSpring, but they are adding an SD-WAN element to that global network they're looking at. And then the other, I think, is very important to mention our third-party remote translation services. So we understand that a lot of these international customers are challenged on the ground in these locations for what can and can't be achieved, whether they don't have an IT person there, maybe it's just a receptionist, whether it's just a general day worker. We can actually send a field service engineer if you need it, but we can also coordinate a delivery and turn up with a third-party remote translation service provider and coordinate just as if AireSpring had a presence on the ground in one of these locations around the world. And I think that's up to about 30 to 40 languages around the world that we're working with today. Okay, so as you can see, some of these names you may have heard of, some of these names you may not have heard of, but a lot of these partners that we're dealing with are multi-billion-dollar companies, right? T-Mobile, for example, in the US, cell phone company. Germany, they're the incumbent. They have network all across Eastern Europe. They've bought into what we're doing, and they're here to help us. Telefonica the same way. I mentioned that I was in the Middle East. I'll mention a deal that we've been working on in Iraq in a couple of slides. But there is a significant amount of opportunity out there for the partner world, the channel world, to just ask the question, right? So we're getting more involved in these deals, and these deals internationally outside of the US are generally a lot higher revenue, which is unbelievable for you guys, right? It's an ability that we have now that we can pass on to you. And again, our whole message here is boosting sales, bring us in early, bring us in often. How do we help you? How do we use our expert knowledge that we've onboarded over the last 4 years to help you guys go and sell that and convert into actual transactional business? So our strategic growth internationally in the last year we've seen a significant growth in Canada. We get more quotes in Canada than any other country. Myself and Bell Canada did a webinar about 6 months ago, I believe, to explain why we should be focused on doing business in Canada. It's one of the largest trading routes in the world. The border between the US and Canada represents we have handouts in the email. We can give it to you, but it's a significant amount. I think it's the second or first largest trading partnership in the world. And we've seen that. We've seen the amount of business go up in Canada magnificently. So we've seen our TSBs, TSDs, drive additional growth through their channel representation in Canada also. And this is a massive focus for us. So what we've done is we've built strategic relationships with partners in Canada, Bell Canada being one of them. I don't know if you've seen that webinar, but they are here to support us in any way, shape, or form that we need. They do not have a direct agent model. They are partnering with companies like AireSpring. They selected AireSpring, and there's going to be continued investment between Bell and AireSpring on additional support, knowledge, potentially lead generation to drive additional business growth through the TSB and TSD channel. They've seen this happen. And we've seen it happen in the US, right? It's just kind of Canada is a kind of, I don't think that it would be remiss of me to say that they've even mentioned that it's kind of 10 years behind what the US is seeing in terms of the channel growth, right? So it's going to be a massive part of our business moving forward. And we've created strategic agreements, processes to make that happen. The other thing is that I don't know if anybody's used QuoteSpring or if they're doing their own quotes today, but we're days away from launching an API with our local partnerships in Canada that have APIs to be able to quote on-demand bandwidth for DIA as and when you need without having to come through a channel manager, et cetera, right? So they're becoming very, they want our business, right? So that's why they're doing this, is that they're seeing more of demand for last mile ZN connectivity. And there are 66,000 end users in the US today that have locations in the US, in Canada, that aren't being serviced. So we need to go and find out how we go and focus on those kind of businesses. And they're multi-locations, right, as well, right? So there's a huge amount of opportunity. That's what I'm trying to get at. To help with this too, we've seen demand with invoicing in international currencies. We've been doing this now, Canadian dollars specifically. We can extend it to euros, pounds. There'll be other currencies moving forward in the future. But let us know what it needs to make these deals happen. We have the process in place. It's all about just kind of clicking a button, making sure that we understand how to invoice our collectively customers in these international regions based on the currencies they demand. And then, as I mentioned, the significant amount of investment that's happening at AireSpring to drive our global solution offering is unparalleled. You won't find it from anybody else. We've got a global private network. These relationships that we're building with providers, we're explaining the channel model to them that they've never heard of, and they're looking to AireSpring to drive this channel model moving forward to generate revenues for themselves as well, right? So how do we do this? And it's all about these relationships. So as I said, I've been in Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa, driving these relationships, building, and we're seeing these relationships grow with revenue growth, right? So bring me in, bring me often. I'm very knowledgeable about what we're talking about, and I can explain how these countries operate and what we need to do to help close the business. Because we're also seeing that sometimes the stakeholders are on the ground in these remote locations, and having a centralized point in the US isn't always the most helpful, but bringing us in, we can help with that mitigation, explain that we're building a fully stacked solution, and we understand what's happening, and we're seeing it grow, right? So choosing AireSpring for international solutions, I've mentioned it, 23 years of operations. There's no other carrier out there that has that longevity, that has been channel focused for that long. We're installing in 190 countries. We have multi-language support. We have multi-currency solutions. There should be no reason that we're not getting the opportunities, and you shouldn't be afraid of bringing opportunities to AireSpring, because we've built all of these foundations for the last 3-4 years to make this happen, and now we're seeing it pay off, right? So please, even if it's not the right fit, we'll tell you, but I don't believe that's going to be an issue. Bring us in early. So yeah, connectivity is the foundation, right? So we all know that just like your home internet, everyone's looking for the best deal. But how do we make that stick for not the 3-year deal that they take out or 3-year contract? How do we add on value-added services that are going to impact the customer's life to make a digital transformation the most effective? Use AireSpring, use you guys as the most trusted partner moving forward. And connectivity is the foundation for that, but SD-WAN, our ability to stage, configure, and then bring those pieces of equipment wherever they need to be in the world. So then we kind of move into the global logistics. So we have a white glove service that will actually take that device from the US where it's staged and configured, and take it through the border of whatever country, work with the customs teams, duties, any excess taxes. We'll get it to that end user location, wherever it may be, with our logistics service. And we've seen horrendous horror stories where customers have tried to do it themselves. They've tried to buy in country. The models don't match up with the rest of the SD-WAN equipment. So we understand this, right? So bring us in, we'll explain it. Ultimately, it's up to the customer at the end of the day what they do. But this is, if we're going to ever deliver a SD-WAN service, this will be my go-to solution, because these are the little things that can actually cause a problem for the customer and have that representation, kind of nullified as a solution provider if we can't sort these kind of services. So we understand this. Dave can mention it. He's worked with many SD-WAN solutions delivering all over the world, and we have a true solution for this. In addition to that, I mentioned about the IT services on the ground. We understand that some of these locations around the world don't have IT teams. We can bring in our field services team wherever it is in the world to stack, rack equipment, install, make sure that customer is up and running. It's a add-on service, but we have that ability wherever it is in the world. And then I mentioned about the navigation of the Chinese firewall. So if you have manufacturing customers, healthcare, finance, whatever it is, we have a solution for this. And just to finish this off, our global proactive monitoring, and I've never seen this happen at another company, but if we're delivering an SD-WAN solution, obviously we'd love you to buy the SD-WAN solution through AireSpring. Oh, sorry, the connectivity through AireSpring. But the reality is that trying to keep every last mile or every location around the world on track and understand what they have installed and what they don't, it's a challenge for some companies. But we can actually take over the management of that pre-installed solution. Obviously there's a cost to it, but we can actually that BYOC, bring your own connectivity. We can actually manage that last mile connectivity, even if it's not on net or ordered through AireSpring today. And our goal, commitment to total customer satisfaction, regardless of location, right? So whether it be China, Iraq, London, Paris, wherever, we are here as the solution provider. We are the carrier of record. I hate it, and I've seen it many times throughout my career, where you get a trouble ticket opened and they blame the last mile carrier. We can't get a response from the last mile carrier. We're here to be that last mile carrier. So we will drive that message forward. We understand we're the customer or the carrier of record, and it's up to us to get that up and running as quickly as possible, regardless of whether it's going to be an issue. And we all know it's telecom, right? There are going to be issues. Let's be upfront. Let's be transparent. Let's get it resolved and move forward. Okay, so we have two SD-WAN solutions today internationally. We have a VMware solution, which is now powered by Broadcom, and a Fortinet solution. There's two different elements to it, and I'll let Dave go into it after this. But our VMware solution is a global private network enabled solution. So if you want to get your customers' traffic off of the public internet as quickly as possible, we've built this global private network in conjunction with a VMware solution. And I would kind of class that, if there is a dedicated need for lower latency, for dedicated routing, et cetera, we should move into this world. If it's Fortinet solution, Fortinet has been unbelievable to us, and our Fortinet SD-WAN solution is a purely over-the-top solution. And if a customer is looking for that kind of solution, we can provide primary and diverse backup internet solutions, and then add Fortinet devices. It depends on what the customer needs, right? So we're very aware of that, and it's about making sure that the SD-WAN solution meets the needs for the customer and what they're trying to achieve, as well as their budget, et cetera, right? So with that being said, I'm going to hand over control to Dave. Thank you for listening to my British accent, but it's always good to talk to you, and I'll be at channel partners in the coming weeks. So if there's anybody that wants to chat, I'm happy to meet, and yeah, I look forward to working with you.
All right, thanks, Joseph. Again, appreciate everybody's attendance today, and as we start to get into the secondary part of this presentation, we're going to dive into some of the areas that Joseph had talked about. And so when we went to go look at the different major two providers, VMware and Fortinet, a lot of guys ask, why AireSpring and why the VMware solution? And as Joseph alluded to earlier, it's about flexibility in our SD-WAN over the top deployments, as well as primarily focusing into those far-reaching areas where global private network solutions make sense. And so VMware was the first one of choice that satisfies both of those solutions. And as we all know, if you've been in the space for a while, VMware has been around. They've always held that Gartner Magic Quadrant location, especially around critical capabilities for WAN edge infrastructure. And again, from AireSpring's global private network and GPN and our deployment offerings, we felt at the time when we rolled this out that that was the best solution to roll forward with. And a lot of that came around offering a lot of our partners' clients a cost-effective deployment solution within some of these different locations. Because as we know, within the US, solutions and prices can be very, very similar. But when we start getting into global locations and reach and global private networks, when you look at who we compete with and where we set, we wanted to provide a similar like solution to some of those global SD-WAN providers, but provide the solutions in a format and a framework that gave you, the partner, some additional alternatives for a similar like solution. So we went down the road, we chose those solutions, and again, we built into those global private network gateways that we own and operate. And again, the goal of providing that consistent global connectivity and accelerated application. And part of this, before we kind of step into this next area, when we think about the economics of the flexibility to meet any customer requirement, especially from an SD-WAN perspective, or as we get into the Fortinet side, we start to look at how are we utilizing secure SD-WAN and a next generation firewall. And those are the reasons that we started to look at Fortinet to expand our solution portfolio. And as SASE starts to, again, continue to emerge and be a growth pattern, we start to bridge those gaps by offering some of our secure SD branch. And again, they've been the driving force in the evolution of cybersecurity and the convergence of those network and security. And one of the other interesting points is important for you as your prospective clients and customers start to look at, well, who do we go with? What are the alternatives? Who provides different layers of security and in one solution set? It's very important to understand that because of our involvement with Fortinet over the last couple of years, a lot of our solution engineers, a lot of our staff, a lot of our managed solution engineers who support the opportunities all the way through to turnup, we have achieved what we refer to as that expert level partner, which is the highest partner level within the Fortinet Engage Partner Program. And because we're recognized as a top tier managed security services provider, we are now getting access and continuing to build upon that foundation, as Joseph alluded to, of just pure internet connectivity, right? When you think about who do you go out with, you've always known us as an aggregator. You've been able to get into those locations for internet connectivity, and now we've expanded it. And now if you think about this, as the foundation has been built, now we're able to stack on these types of products and solutions to really solution sell, be the trusted advisor for those different clients of yours. And the nice thing about that is your clients are able to get all these different solutions under one bill, one invoice, one agreement, which makes that path to really reduce any solution selection creep that we like to call it, where they've got to go out and find multiple vendors, multiple services, multiple solutions, and sign multiple agreements, and then manage all those different invoices. So we combine all that industry-leading secure SD-WAN, next generation firewalls. So that's the framework of what we do. And if you start to think about the value of what we're doing when we think about an SD-WAN deployment advantage, we can do this both in the US, and our focus is around global. And we look to provision those sites quickly. So once we've identified where those locations reside, where those branch offices are, we're able to take that specific product portfolio solution set, send it and ship it, and connect to those different sites very quickly. And the clients always have the capability either to utilize us to procure those last mile circuits, or they could utilize potentially multiple underlaid links, whether it be MPLS, DIA, or broadband. But we're in a good position to utilize what they have today, or look to us to procure the additional circuits to really take full advantage of an SD-WAN deployment. We usually look at least a minimum of 2 different circuits within those markets. And then we provide the visibility across any of those links through the orchestrators and the management portals to really focus in and set the policies around how those applications, links, and really mission critical applications like ERP and other solutions that are really specific to passing that data from point A to B or out through the cloud, and then offer multi-connect solutions as well back into any of those cloud-based applications. Now, as we just shared with you a little bit, we can deploy on a global scale for both, the VMware solutions that we primarily run with, or we can look at offering the Fortinet SD-WAN and firewall solutions as well. But when we start to dig into a little bit more around our global managed SD-WAN solution, we do have and provide our global private network within 23 GPN markets globally. And this gives you a good look and feel into where we have deployed those. And not to mention what we do internally with some of the key markets. You can see that we do a lot of business. We have a lot of connectivity within Asia and specifically China. And a lot of our wins and success rates have been with organizations that may fall into your client portfolio that has manufacturing or may have financial institutions. Retail is a big one for us as well. So when you start to think about what is your client makeup, where do your prospects have these far-reaching locations, you can rest assured that we've got ways to satisfy those with a highly available, dedicated access, not only through the global private network, but specifically in and out of China as well. And so when we look at this, this is a typical deployment. We won't spend a lot of time here, but rest assured that we can provide solutions, whether it be companies that need to move mission critical data from Beijing or Shanghai or Singapore back into the US. We have the capabilities to focus that with consistent, very low latency SLAs as well, because our global private network comes with an SLA back guarantee. Now, one thing, we won't spend a lot of time here, but if some of you have sold services with us in the past, AireSpring provides a very unique solution, what we refer to as our AireSpring gateway access points that reside in the US, and we have those in Chicago, New York, and Dallas. But because we have a global private network, and because we're looking to really increase application performance and resiliency within the networks, we do roll and we do offer as part of our solution. It is an add-on, but we do offer access into not only in the US, but international locations. And the focus is around utilizing those gateway access and those IP addresses to ensure IP mobility. So those IPs can follow what we refer to as the box, whether it be the VMware edge device and so forth. And then we look at, ensuring that, the beauty about IP mobility is if the circuits drop or the firewall IP addresses will still remain, reachable and so forth, and they don't change. The other key component of that is, we can deploy that anywhere in the globe. And because we've got global private network POPs within Sao Paulo, for example, many locations into China, when they purchase those different circuits from us, and we can look at multiple circuits, we do add in a layer of IP stability. So it's the same IP, but utilizing those multiple underlying carriers. And because we have the gateway access and the IP addresses, we do provide as a big value IP independence. So there's no carrier lock. If they had a certain carrier, they wanted to move to somebody else, because you've purchased those, that gives us then 2 millisecond failover time. That's a big deal when you start looking at localization a little bit more within market and region of how well we can turn and keep those applications live. One thing we touched upon and where we've seen a lot of success recently is a solution that we rolled out about a year ago was our premium internet access in China. And we refer to that as PIOC. And we found that a lot of the different manufacturing companies, different use cases, and we see the same similar discussion company over company is how do we solve for those IT managers' issues and the challenges that are unique to China. So if any of you have ever sold into China or are familiar with some of the issues that your clients may be facing, we have a way to really get into the mainland China area and we allow those mission critical applications and some of those different cloud solutions to be able to come back to the US, and we enable that undisturbed optimal internet access to different resources like Office 365, Google, Cloud, and those different applications that may be residing in the US. And we'll get into that a little bit. So when we think about that and we look at how do we support those different solutions, it kind of starts as looking at what's going on within China. And that's where if you get us engaged early, to help you vet that or do the discovery and do the needs requirements, we can start to identify and pinpoint the value that this type of solution has. And once organizations have an understanding of how we go about getting that mission critical traffic out of China, there's a good chance that they'll move forward with that pretty quickly. And sometimes they'll roll forward this as you start to look at what's the overall deal size look like for your perspective and your client. It's not uncommon that we may phase in those most mission critical locations, start there, and then we do a phased approach to start to bring in the rest of those locations globally or in the US. So it gives you a good place to start and take care of those problem children locations, especially in China. And we do that from a rollout. If you start in the lower left-hand corner, we look at that as providing the edge devices, providing that in an HA configuration, and then look at providing the internet connectivity that Joseph had talked about. When you start to look at providing that last mile circuit procurement, most importantly, we can provide it in a number of different flavors and sizes. And then that traffic that's destined, as we shape that, we can identify what applications through business policies, over 3,500 of those, and we can identify where that we want to direct those, whether it stays public within China, utilizing something down the road for internet access, or then we'll redirect those other applications back into the global private network. Again, we've got 8 of those markets today. We drive that across our global private network, which is essentially the Autobahn of Expressway on a layer 2 connectivity back into LA. And then from there, we're able to take it off as an off-ramp, get it within our AireSpring gateway, and then utilize US AireSpring static IP addresses so your client can reach all of those different cloud applications and things that reside here in the US, bypassing a lot of what we refer to as that Great Firewall of China and the deep pack inspection and the sniffing into DNS reboots and all the things that China does to regulate traffic that they consider a threat to their environments. So that gives you a good feel into the different solution sets, the deployment flexibility we've got. And again, as you start to look at what your clients are looking for and what they're trying to solve, we wanted to share with you a couple different use cases here very quickly on what that looks like. And one of them that Joseph had talked about, and I'll let him talk about this a little bit more, is a key partner win that really showcases what the solutions were, what we provided, and the reach.
Yeah, and doing business in hard to reach locations has always been something I've been involved in my whole career. And we got an opportunity at the end of 2020, what are we in? 2022. And it was for a federal government contractor that needed to to diversify their connectivity solution out of Iraq, right? So they came to us asking how to improve the connectivity solution they had today through SD-WAN, right? So they were using a local internet service provider in Iraq. So we came up with a solution with our engineering team, Dave, using AGA, what Dave was just talking about, adding in complex fiber solutions, and it says satellite, but it's also a satellite/microwave backup. But ultimately, this customer is a real world customer, right? So this customer was looking at the ability to connect back to the US and not only use the connectivity in the daytime for their day-to-day needs as an organization, but as well as help the users on the ground, which are US-based contractors sitting in Iraq, connect better to the real world, right? So using these to connect to FaceTime, speak to family, have real world meaning outside of business hours to have a life, not just sitting at a location in Baghdad or just outside of Baghdad, wherever it was, but actually, use this outside to improve their lives, right? So these guys spend so much time overseas, they want to speak with family and friends, et cetera, use Call of Duty, all this kind of stuff. It gave them an unbelievable solution that met the needs of not only the business, but for the recreational welfare of the guys on the ground sitting there outside of the business hours. So yeah, so we helped them do that. We reduced their costs. We added in multiple different elements of what we're offering today, right? So I hate the word aggregator. I love the word, next generation solutions. We've added in all of these solutions together to create a connectivity solution that meets the needs of everybody within that environment. So SD-WAN, Fortinet security solutions, DIA circuits, satellite and microwave backup, and then AGA breakout. It just came together perfectly. And when you're looking at doing business in these locations, the revenues are significantly more than doing business in the US, right? So don't turn it away, bring it to us. Let us look at it. Let us bring in our engineering teams. Let's use our expertise. Let's meet the needs of the customer, not only for today, but for the entirety of the time that they're at that location in Iraq or wherever it is for your customer moving forward.
That's good. I think one other here as we jump across to another good use case. Another one was a global manufacturing. It's a global metal fabrication supply company. And when you think about the different challenges and so forth that they had, was they were multiple business units. For example, they had 5 different business units, all running in decentralized environments. And one of their goals were to try and look at, okay, how do we cross this across the multiple business units as they came up? Many different business units were using different terms within their solution and their technology infrastructure. So it was one of those elements where we were able to go across, look across the different units, and come to the realization that they had over 125 worldwide manufacturing and distribution service centers in 5 continents. 75 of those were international locations, of which a decent chunk were sitting in China. And then if you look at the focus within the US, that was pretty easy to handle, right? US SD-WAN solutions and so forth. And we started to get back into it, and we started to understand what their goals and objectives were. It was really moving away from the MPLS network globally, and they wanted a rock solid global transport to deal with the internet backbone, bypassing some of the challenges within China, and they wanted to be able to secure all those locations globally. The solution rollout that we came with was both primary and backup connectivity, so a dual location, dual circuit configuration consisting of a variety of different offerings there. We did roll out in a phased approach our VMware SD-WAN solution, both in the US and globally. And behind that, because we're able to take best of breed from both VMware and Fortinet, for example, we were able to stack within that device deployments a Fortinet on-premise managed security and firewall with the next generation firewall. And then overlay that back into Joseph's world around our AirAlert, AirNMS solution, which was the 24/7, 365 network monitoring. So you combine all of that together, plus with our global private network, plus our premium internet access into China, it satisfied their global reach. We provided them very, very favorable pricing with that size. And I believe they looked at a 4-year term at the time. So if you start to stack that over from a partner perspective, the solutions are there first and foremost. We had technical alignment, we had business alignment, and we were able to provide that solution in a co-managed environment, which they liked. And so that was the value of that. And those were nice six-figure type monthly recurring revenues on those. So you can kind of do the math on when we start to do that, stack in the solutions, it gets pretty interesting for you specifically. And then as we kind of move through and wrap up, another just example is one of our case studies we had for a global property insurance company. Again, it was a combination of connectivity with managed SD-WAN. Similar results, all have their different reasons of what the solution needs to take care of to meet their needs and requirements. And I think one of the big things that we have, from testimonials is, you look at how we brought all the resources together on these enterprise type accounts. We're able to pull within the organization to really satisfy our clients' needs and requirements. And you can see from the results down there that was provided by the service director. We do a phenomenal job. We rolled out over 182 circuits in a year. The interesting thing is it's not only about what can we do, but it's the ROI, or more importantly, in this case, the total cost of ownership. And due to how we deployed, the speed and the efficiency that we did that, one of the things that we did was able to save them over $11 million a year moving from MPLS to SD-WAN. So it's pretty impressive. We go about it, and these are the types of results that our clients can come to expect. Now, as we kind of shift and wrap up here in the next couple of minutes, there's one thing that we always try to approach when we start to look at the buyer's persona. And this is important when you, as the partner, start to look at, okay, what does the ideal company look like? If we can understand their issues, we get to understand also, you're going to understand the people who make that business decisions or influencers, and what is their motivation to purchase. So, the ideal company for us is usually when you start getting into the global infrastructure side and global SD-WAN deployments, is a lot of times we find that companies have got complex infrastructure. There's too many vendors, too many devices, and what we refer to as infrastructure sprawl. A lot of times they find with some of their incumbent providers, or when they start looking at how can they get everything under one roof, so to say, there's a lot of times a lack of flexibility with who they go with or who they have as far as options. So the fact that we're able to put all those services under one bill and invoice through one point of contact, those companies looking to migrate that way and recognize that as a challenge, we're a great fit. When you talk about performance, IT directors or application, the business unit folks, like the marketing folks, sales, whoever runs those different organizations, even down to HR, there's usually performance issues. It could be jitter, packet loss, or getting in and out of China, as we talked about before. And it's not so much about the connectivity, but it's the inconsistency within network that is a great fit for us. And then two, we can help shorten those lengthy deployment times and so forth. And so who are the key people that we look at within an organization? Obviously, I think a lot of us spend time with the technical buyer. Many times it's ultimately going to go through there, but the value about SD-WAN and focusing on applications is now you can start to reach out to the business buyer. The business buyer motives are they want to expand their revenue. They want to increase or have a better customer experience. They want to increase, or decrease time to market. They want to roll into a market, stand it up very quickly, and they want to then, move from a CapEx model a lot of times to an OpEx solution. And then you've got the corporate buyers, HR, operations, different folks that fall into that realm. There are applications that they are responsible for, and if they don't perform well, they're on the hook. And so, when we talk about the different types of applications, right, what are essential to the company's business needs, a lot of times we can focus on understanding the applications. And if we understand their process and technology of how do they support those different applications, we have a good chance to solve for that. And it could be data and information issues, workflow, event processing, productivity, email, ERP. There's a multitude of different things, and they're all impacted, whether it be within the technical buyer, for example. They always deal with physical and virtual device management. You hear a lot about all things IT. That is a big issue when you start looking at what are manufacturing companies doing to resolve that. And there's a whole stack of other solutions that the IT guys are responsible for. What this opens up for you to go have discussions now is with the business buyer, right? You're looking at the real-time online communication and collaboration, like Teams, for example, voice, video. There's also other applications, for example, like architecture, engineering software, accounting, and ERP applications. Every one of these things are impacted when you start to expand your reach globally. And then you've got your HR, human resource information systems, communication software, a whole other area. So when you start talking applications, the challenges are faced to deliver those. These are the types of solutions that we help solve for.